As bad as things were for K-State and Jerome Tang last week when I spoke to you guys about the current Jerome Tang situation, it's worse. It's become much worse in the last week, last bit of it today, and not just because K-State lost a game by 34 points, the second worst home loss in Bramlage Coliseum history. It's because of what Jerome Tang has been saying. So we're going to dive into all that here on the show tonight. It is the Open for Business Big 12 podcast. Thank you for joining me. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Great Big 12 basketball this weekend. We're going to talk Darryn Peterson, AJ Dybantsa. Can Kansas actually win with a guy who's only playing about half the time? Is BYU in some major trouble right now? Shout out to UCF for beating Texas Tech. And hey, is the NCAA going to come after the SEC, put the hammer down? And does Texas Tech need to watch out? All those questions will be answered here on the show. Again, like, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. I appreciate everybody who does that. You can do so at ofbnews.com. Totally free in your inbox twice a week. Nearly 6,000 Big 12 fans do subscribe. I'm not going to waste a ton of time here today. Fill up the chat room. I'm sure there will be plenty of comments tonight. Like and subscribe, and you can click the $ below the chat box if you want to submit a super chat to guarantee that you make it on the show tonight. All right, let's not waste any more time. I see the comments. I know why you guys are here. Look, days after I made the video about the Jerome Tang problem that K-State has, Tang has made his situation demonstrably worse. And really, when I say Tang has made his situation demonstrably worse, it's more so that K-State's situation is demonstrably worse. And I've got about 18.6 million reasons why. You won't believe what Jerome Tang has been saying in press conferences this week, and he refuses to do the one thing that could actually help at least a little bit. So this week, it wasn't even all that terrible on the basketball court. They almost won a game at West Virginia. K-State had a 4-point lead heading into the final 4 minutes of the game at West Virginia, but once again, exhibited a masterclass in how you lose a game. They went through a 3 or 4 minute scoring drought. PJ Haggerty had an opportunity to tie or take the lead. There was not a great set drawn up for him, and instead of trying to get off like an actual legitimate shot, he basically tried to draw a foul. It did not work out well, and K-State lost at West Virginia. I'm going to get to the comments after that game because to me, that was the more damning of the two press conferences this week. Everybody is talking about what Tang said today after losing to Iowa State. I would suggest to you what he said after losing to West Virginia was worse. But then today, Iowa State led by as many as 39 points in Bramlage Coliseum. A Bramlage Coliseum, by the way, that was pretty full, which shocked me, and kudos to the fans for that. But 39 points. It was a 29-point game in the first half. I mean, this was not just something getting away late. It was a 29-point game in the first half. Now, is K-State down 3 contributors? Yes. Was K-State anywhere near the NCAA tournament before they got hurt? No. Okay, key distinction here from what we're about to hear from Jerome Tang. But today, completely embarrassing. Second worst loss in Bramlage Coliseum history. Third worst home loss in school history. School history. K-State's been playing hoops for a long time, my friends. Okay. In these press conferences, I know it gets to this point when you have a losing team. You're 10-12 overall. You're 1-8 in the Big 12. And you're doing that with a $10 million roster, by the way. For a second straight year, you're going to have a losing season and miss the tournament with a $10 million roster. Crazy. Anything you say in a press conference, like nobody's going to be happy with it. Everyone's going to crush virtually anything you do say. But you still don't have to go here to just make it worse, make people more angry, make yourself look worse, make the situation messier. And that, I feel, is what has happened from Jerome Tang. So I'm going to get to this first clip from the West Virginia game, okay? Please do subscribe to the channel, pushing toward 30K subs, and I'm almost there, so please do subscribe. Here is the clip from after the West Virginia game. And this is the one that I have the bigger problem with Tang.
To put together a team and build a program that will be on that level year in and year out. And I ain't figured that out yet because they keep changing the rules on me, right? Like once they get the rules set, right, like then I can have a consistent plan because there are 3 guys that should be on my roster right now that are not on my roster because the rules changed, okay? And and that's not even the guys who are injured, Okay, so if they will give me consistent rules, then I know how to move forward and operate. And now we'll figure it out because I got a staff that we're relentless. We don't stop.
Okay, so a lot of talk there about the NCAA and rules and 3 guys missing from the roster. He's not even talking about the guys that are injured, which again, in fairness, they are down 3 contributors. They probably wouldn't be this bad, but they would still be a bottom 3 or 4 Big 12 team even with those guys. What drives me nuts here is the excuse making. Again, I will mention top 5 to 10 NIL roster last year, still top 20 this year, $10 million plus dollars. Ton of money. Okay. The opponents that you have played each of the last 2 games, less NIL dollars than you and still getting punked. So I hate the excuses, first of all. But second of all, the players he is talking about here, Tyreek Smith, who I think would have been a nice piece, certainly would have helped them inside, which they need. But K-State knew, Jerome Tang knew when they took him last year, they took him last January, knowing that the hope was he'd be eligible for this season. He was an eligibility risk the whole time. It was all about petitioning the NCAA for an extra year of eligibility, like getting an extra year of eligibility for him. Now, there have been Diego Pavia situations. I can understand why you might take a flyer, but that was no guarantee. This was a guy that would not have had eligibility, and you were trying to prove that through a lot of the new things that are happening now, he should. It was a risk. That's not a, hey, this is a crippling thing. And while Tyreek Smith, again, is a nice player, he's not Darryn Peterson. This is not make or break your team player. I'm sure one of the other players he's talking about there is Max Jones, who played last year. Solid piece, effort guy, kind of a glue guy. Nice player, would be good to have, but they were trying to coax an extra year of eligibility out of him. They went into last season thinking this is his last year of eligibility. They got hopeful when they saw some of the JUCO stuff happening. He played some JUCO ball, so the thought was, well, maybe we can go get retroactively an extra year there. Again, that was going to be an uphill climb. That was no guarantee. These are not like huge, big-time pieces, and these were not guarantees. You knew you were taking a risk here. And Bryce Desert, I think, is the other guy, a French player that they were pursuing. I'm assuming that's who the third is they're talking about here. I don't know the full story on that, but once again, not a Darryn Peterson. And the other 2 Euros that you took, Andre Kostic and Elias Rapiak, have been wildly disappointing this year. So I'm not inclined to believe that a foreign player was going to be the cure-all for this roster, man. When you have been given the resources that you have been given the last 2 years and you have performed like this, to be trotting out that excuse, I'm just not here for it, man. I'm just not here for it. And he is right. Okay. Part of what he said today is like, look, no matter what I say, you guys are going to twist it and try and get clicks and all this. He is right. Nothing he says is going to make anybody happy, but you don't have to do that. You can go to West Virginia and be like, hey, look, he's even said this before. We're close. We're close. We just can't get over the hump. We got to get better. I got to help these guys. But just say that. Just say that. That's fine. It doesn't have to be that the NCAA is screwing me, man. A bit of humility would go a long way. More on that in a moment. I mentioned comments today. He really got people fired up today after losing by 34 at home. 3rd worst home loss in school history. And this was the quote that I think when people saw it just on Twitter got the most run. Again, keep in mind, lost the game by 34 at home today to a rival.
The most disappointing thing from your point of view about that effort and game today?
I'm not disappointed at all.
Why not?
Because I'm with these dudes every single day, and I know everything that they're going through, and y'all don't. And so I was proud of our guys, especially in the second half.
It's all right. Jerome Tang is proud. He is proud of the team for the effort after losing by 34. Look, that one, even I'll cut him a bit of slack on that. Like, if you don't want to throw your team totally under the bus because of that, like I will cut you a bit of slack for that. I will. But this is more of a back and forth because he was getting some pushback from reporters. Kudos to the guys in the room today. I thought they did a good job on pushing back on some of this, which needed to happen. So let's listen to this interaction.
You said that it was a message for your players. At some point, though, do you feel like you need to give a message to the fans to not just explain off, hey, today was not a great game, obviously, but why you're at this position after 3 years now and how things do get better moving forward?
Yeah, at the end of the season, we'll talk about that.
do you think that's going to be?
It doesn't matter what I think, because whatever I say, y'all are gonna take whatever you want to and clip it the way you want to and post it the way you want to, so you can get the clicks that you need. And that's so. It doesn't matter what I say. What matters is what I'm doing with these young men on the floor, in practice every day, in their daily lives, to help them continue to move forward. And then, because this is the crew that I brought in, right? And this is the crew I wanted to roll with. Right? And if we're not good enough at the end of the season, right, then we will figure the thing out for the next thing. But no, I don't feel like I need to give an explanation to our fans right now. I want them to know that I'm working really hard, and I'm not proud. I'm not happy with the results, but I am proud of the young men that we brought in.
Okay, look, again, saying you're proud of the team, whatever. That's cool. You don't want to trash them in the press conference. That's fine. One of the things I take the most issue with here, and this is where I get frustrated, when it's like a coach who's clearly back against the wall, feeling that things are not going well, feeling the pressure here, has blown through a ton of money with very little to no success. You just like lose inventory on what you can just kind of say whatever and hope that it doesn't get checked. Here's one thing he said. We'll talk about it at the end of the year, in reference to, hey, this season has not gone well. We have underperformed. We'll talk about it at the end of the year. Well, guess what happened last year? Last year, they had top 5 to top 10 NAL money. Jeff Goodman told me on 3MA, top 5 NIL money in the country. They went sub 500. They missed the tournament. And I would have thought last year, there's some kind of explanation that should come at the end of the year. Jerome Tang did not do an end of the year postgame, like end of the year press conference. He didn't. He just ducked on doing interviews, didn't show up anywhere, went into total silence, despite requests, some of which came from us on 3MA. There was nothing, no talking about it, no humility, accountability, anything last year at the end of the season, until he showed up on what? Who out there? I saw some Iowa State fans that were out there in the chat tonight. You guys could probably tell me where Jerome Tang first surfaced after last season to do a media hit. He did an interview with Cyclone Fanatic. Okay? He ducked the K-State media until he talked to Cyclone Fanatic. In a move that, look, I don't know what his true intention was with that, but it sure felt like I'm not going to take the heat, and then here's the middle finger to all you guys in the media that were criticizing me. That certainly is what it felt like when that happened. And so I don't trust that there's going to be a real discussion, like, hey, we'll talk about that at the end of this year. I don't trust that there's going to be public accountability for that at the end of this year. And if you're saying, hey, I don't know the fans an explanation, I mean, like, okay, but all of this is just, it's from a guy whose attitude and demeanor this whole time has been one, expect to win, right? That was the big, K-State fans stormed the court after beating Kansas, Jerome Tang's first year. And he more or less chastised the fans for rushing the floor, saying, you guys got to expect to win. Like, that needs to be our attitude moving forward. Okay, well, now we're going on a second straight losing season with top 10 money, or at least top 20 money. And you told everybody expect to win. I feel like that probably deserves like somewhat of an explanation, apology, something. Like, you can't be that guy when things are going well and then totally run away from it or say, I don't owe you anything when things are not going well. You know, I mean, I loved the Jerome Tang attitude back then, by the way. I loved when after the Kentucky win, he said, we just had more dudes than them. And that seemed to really set off John Calipari and Kentucky fans. You know, even at the time, one of my worst takes of all time was backing Jerome Tang during the Spygate, Cygate, whatever you want to call it. But like, you're the guy that you called out TJ Otzelberger at mid-court thinking that they were spying on your huddle. Like, you can't be that guy and then things start going wrong and you just duck and cover and hide and blame other people for things. Like, that's it. Just, I'm not liking the true colors that seem to be coming out here when you know what has hit the fan. So on top of all of this and above all else, the bottom line is, like, man, just having this attitude with no humility. And that is the one thing that I think could help a little bit here that's not happening. Is just showing be a little bit humble, admit some mistakes over the last few years, because we just have not seen any of that. We just have not seen any of that. it was a very, I'll say confident. I will be kind and say an extremely confident attitude that he's had since the day that he took over the program. And I loved it when it was happening. So I'm not a perfect messenger to come here and criticize it now on the backside. But I just would have thought if things had gone this poorly, there would be a little bit more contrition, remorse, humility. Like you're getting beat by 34 at home by Iowa State. They spend less money than you on that roster. Fact, they do. I think considerably less money. And then on post-game radio, this was one quote. I forgot about this part. This is one quote that didn't make the rounds as much because it was just on post-game radio as opposed to in the post-game press conference. But he said, we got to close the talent gap on Iowa State. Well, how much money is it going to take to close the talent gap on Iowa State? Tang? Like, what? I mean, how much money does K-State have to give you to close the talent gap? If that's what and I don't think the talent gap is really the issue. There was plenty of talent on last year's team. Ugonna Onyenso is a pretty productive player this year. I mean, like Day-Day Ames from a couple of years ago, great player, great college player now. He's left. Coleman Hawkins was a phenomenal player at Illinois. We saw it, and, PJ Haggerty is a very good player. Like, there has been talent here. You've spent a ton of money for talent. Organization, culture, coaching, all of this seems clearly to be the issue. And I just wish, look, I would be willing to, I'm not trying to make this like super personal, but it just, the attitude that emanates from all of this is really hard to ignore, I think. And if there were at least just a little bit of like, hey, yeah, we made some mistakes in roster building last year. It is my opinion that they have been just too distracted by, hey, we got to throw money and get the shiny object as opposed to like building a culture, sticking to a plan, building a team. And that's okay. Like, I understand how you would make that mistake. I was applauding it when Tang said, hey, if you give us the money, we can win a national championship. I thought that was the right attitude. I've been in favor of that. So if it was, hey, that was what we tried, it didn't really work, we got to do things a different way. If that were the message, if that were given in the offseason last year, like something like that, I'd be much more forgiving right now. But that just has simply not been the case. And so, look, I don't know. It just feels like this is going to get uglier and uglier. I mean, they play in the Big 12, guys. They got a lot of losses left on the schedule. I don't know. Abdi Bashir might get back toward the very end of the season. Elias Rapiak, I think like maybe has a chance to get back. Kamari McGriff, I really have that one seems iffy. I have no idea on that. And I won't even touch the Moby situation. Probably not going to play. He would be the least of the four in terms of contributors that they're missing right now. But it's going to get ugly. If this is going to continue to be the attitude and just digging in more and more and more as the losses pile up, there may be more of these segments to come on the show this year. I don't know. And of course, you've got K-State, staring down the barrel of it's going to cost us way too much money to fire you. And the buyout only goes down by $3 million every year. So how much are you really saving by letting him come back around? It's truly, as I said last time, a rock and a hard place. Don't know what you do. But hopefully they're figuring something out. That is why guys like Gene Taylor get paid the big bucks. And, I sit here in front of a microphone. So as people have pointed out, I got some pushback on Twitter like, oh, well, you're the perfect messenger to tell somebody to be humble. Hey, fair enough, man. Fair enough. I am not the perfect messenger on any of this because Iowa State fans that are here, you guys know, I dove so headfirst all in on Jerome Tang that, more so than I have probably anything else at K-State. I just, lightning in a bottle that first year, I thought they were perfectly cut out with the attitude they had about pursuing the money and the fight. I thought this is the guy that's going to elevate the program and move it forward. I went totally all in. I got a bunch of egg on my face for it. You guys deserve to bring up all the old tweets, make fun of me all you want. I totally deserve it, 100%. But I also say that to show, like, I'm not sitting here because I was waiting for Jerome Tang to fail to dive bomb on him. Last year, I got crushed all the time for hyping them up when they finally hit their stride in the middle of the season and saying people were too quick to jump on them. I've been too pro Tang. So I feel like I hope that probably earns me a little bit of extra credibility here in talking about this right now, but we'll see. Look, if you want to know more about how K-State got into this mess, how things devolved to here with Jerome Tang, click here. That's for the folks who watch the clip version of this. Those of you who are watching live, just ignore it. Let me grab a super chat here from John. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being here, John, and your support of the channel. John says, you think things would have been slightly better if Tang hired a GM? Just spitballing at this point. Love the content from one John to another. Hey, thank you. Us Johns have to stick together. Yeah, I mean, slightly. I think K-State sort of does. My perception is that Austin Carpenter is kind of that, but I do think it seems like, Jerome Tang is probably, again, just my perception. You can call it like a somewhat educated guess here. I think that Jerome Tang probably just oversees all that, is in control of most of that. I think the key would be like relinquishing control on that. And that's what I just don't know. I mean, that's another thing about this season is like, this was, I thought it was such a positive sign that they brought in Bill Peterson and Matthew Driscoll, like a couple guys that Tang had worked with at Baylor, that to me, it felt like kind of an adults in the room sort of thing. Like, hey, they can be some guardrails. They can, Matthew Driscoll's a guy that had a really successful coaching career, albeit not at the Power 4 level, but I guess Power 6 if we're talking hoops, but still a successful head coach before. I thought these guys, they've worked with him. They should have his respect. These should be people that they're not going to be yes men. Right. And so I was excited about that. And instead, this has turned into the worst team that Jerome Tang has had. Things have gotten worse. And I think it was, we can talk about the injuries and stuff all you want. I think it was trending toward being the worst team that Jerome Tang has had at K-State before that ever happened. But, so I don't know, John. I think deck chairs on the Titanic probably, but it wouldn't have hurt. It wouldn't have hurt. I just think there were bigger picture issues going on all over the place there. So anyway, I appreciate it, John. If you want to submit a super chat, click the $ below the chat box. I appreciate you. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo, by the way, if you're not watching live and you would like to still submit a super chat to be a part of the show, that is always much appreciated. Look, there was other basketball in the Big 12 this weekend. What a spectacle it was in Lawrence to watch BYU and Kansas. Let's talk about it. Darryn Peterson might be the best college basketball player I've seen in a decade, but was he even the best player on the floor on Saturday in Kansas BYU? And can KU actually win a national title when this guy won't play an entire game like ever? And I do have a Darryn Peterson comp that it's probably both great and horrible for Kansas fans. You're going to get all that here in this video. So this was the much hyped matchup. Everybody was talking about this back in the offseason. Let's see Darryn Peterson versus AJ Dybantsa, probably the number 1 and number 2 overall picks in the draft. And you got that syncing up for the 1,000th game in Allen Fieldhouse history, which is pretty crazy. Who's who of Kansas dignitaries were there. Paul Pierce, Nick Collison, Morris twins, Tyshawn Taylor. 2 Chainz was there. 2 Chainz. That one got me happy. 2 Chainz was there. Multiple NBA GMs all in attendance. Epic elite atmosphere, obviously, from everything you could tell on TV. Certainly Dan Schulman and company were relaying that message as well. And if you only watched one half of this game, you'd be like, man, could not, just out of the park, grand slam, home run, could not have been any better for Kansas. And obviously Darryn Peterson, them supporting their guy, their dude just torched BYU and it just made it look effortless. I mean, this is when I say it's like Darryn Peterson just makes it look so damn easy. The guy just looks like everybody else is running, smashing the turbo button, on the Xbox controller. You got the right trigger to smash down, and he's just like casually jogging along, but still just destroying you. He had 18 points on 6 of 7 shooting, 3 steals for good measure, 3 of 4 from downtown. And I mean, one of the greatest dunks you'll ever see. One of those moments that just makes you go literally just like, whoa, like as you watch it, you can't help but just say, just scream at the TV as it happened. Which again, looked effortless. It didn't look like that was going to be a jam, but he did. And he probably got fouled and it wasn't even called. That's all in the first half in 17 minutes. AJ Dybantsa didn't even get a shot up for the first 2 media timeouts. Had 7 points and 2 turnovers in the first half. Like this was like, okay, Kansas up 20. Statement made, not only by the Jayhawks, but by Darryn Peterson. Only things got derailed a little bit after that. Guys, please do subscribe to the channel. I'm almost at 30,000 subs. Would really appreciate it if you do. I mean, Kansas don't get me wrong. A lot of good coming from this, even though the win was only 90-82. It wasn't a 20-point win, and it got a little dicey down the stretch. Kansas, I think, they've announced themselves back as a Big 12 title contender, regardless of what's going on with Darryn Peterson, which we'll dive into more of that in a moment. But they get Arizona a week from Monday night. They play them twice. They've got Iowa State right after that. Like, they'll have chances to knock off teams in front of them in the standings. And that first half version of Kansas, I mean, who is beating them in the Big 12? Look, I know Houston's awesome. I know Arizona's awesome. I guess maybe the answer would be Arizona. You could get an incredibly high-level game between those two. But not many in the country are going to beat that Kansas team that played in the first half. But Darryn Peterson, if I told you in this game Darryn Peterson did Darryn Peterson things, that means Darryn Peterson did all the Darryn Peterson things, including only playing 3 minutes in the second half, which is very, very much a Darryn Peterson thing. He's only played 11 of 21 games this year, so he's missed about half the season. And in those 11 games, only 6 of the 11, he's played more than 25 minutes. So it's like he's played half the games, and half of those games that he's played, he's definitely playing like under starter minutes. And Bill Self said after the game, it's cramping again. I've seen some of the, I saw, I think it was Mike Vernon, who, is about as plugged in as anybody with Kansas, was mentioning something about, like a representative for Peterson talking to a KU athletics representative, and then talks to the trainer, and then they go throw the leg wraps on Peterson, and he just sits there as a 21-point lead is getting whittled all the way down to 4. He's just chilling on the bench with some leg wraps. I mean, it is weird. It's weird. It's not a great look. I'm not sure how you handle that as a team, as a coach. But, I mean, at the end of the day, he did enough to help them win and win a big game by staking them to that massive lead. He still did, I think fair to say, outplayed AJ Dybantsa, even though Dybantsa scored 17 points. I mean, he got it going a little bit in the second half. I just don't know what you do. I don't know if this Kansas team, is it fair to say they're a national championship contender? I mean, if Darryn Peterson is playing full games, they certainly are, but I don't know. I mean, after the game, speaking of the Darryn Peterson performance here, as well as he played for half after the game, here's what Kevin Young, BYU's head coach, said about who the best player was in the game. So the best player on the floor today was Richie Saunders. Oh, sorry, you got Jerome Tang still there. Oh, why are you not going to show this, my friend? There we go. Best player on the floor today was Richie Saunders, which is fair. Richie Saunders dropped 33 and 10. He was awesome. But this was Kevin Young being asked, like, hey, this matchup is so hyped, number 1 versus number 2 player. He's not even saying Darryn Peterson. He's saying it was Richie Saunders, which I get it. It's his guy. He's probably going to be liable to say something like that, but he's not really wrong. When you only play 3 minutes in the second half of a game that wound up being a 4-point game down the stretch, what can you say about that? And if you're Kansas, this was the comp that I came up with. This just feels to me a lot like the Andrew Wiggins, Joel Embiid year for 2 reasons. Because I feel like I see some Darryn Peterson in both of those guys. Obviously, I mean, Darryn Peterson was more dominant at the college level than either one of those 2. Okay, full stop. I get it. But like Joel Embiid was a great player, but just he had injury issues. He had the back injury, and that kept him out of the NCAA tournament. They lost in the round of 32. And part of that is because Andrew Wiggins, wildly talented, who wound up being the number 1 pick in the draft, he was not enough of like a dog, if we're just going to break it down to that terminology. And I mean, DAWG, dog. He was not like a dog like Sharon Collins, Mario Chalmers, Christian Brown, Ochai Agbaji, like guys like that. He was wildly talented, but he didn't have that killer instinct in him, and he was not going to be enough to pull that team through when you didn't have Joel Embiid. So, I mean, I just get some shades of that where it's like you've got obviously the best player in the country. You've got the guy who's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, but if he's not going to be on the floor more than a half in any game and only play half the games, like, are you truly a national championship contender? The rest of the roster seems to be rounding into form. That's the thing. Bill Self seems to be coaching up a storm, man. I mean, Bryson Tiller suddenly has gone for 37 and 14 combined in the last 2 games. He looks like he's turning into a great player. Melvin Council's a stud. Trey White, stud. I mean, they're figuring it out. But they're having to do it with this distraction, / just like literally it's kind of an impediment in the game. Like, how do you handle that? And for Bill Self, it's such like a hard-nosed coach, like such a tough, gritty coach. Like, I don't know, man. I'm sure he's getting used to it by this point, but it is totally like a new world, next, new generation kind of basketball issue that you're having to deal with right now. They seem like they're doing a good job with it. But if you're going to be in a critical NCAA tournament game and he goes and drops 17 in the first half, and then at the 16-minute mark of the second half in a 2-point NCAA tournament game, a Sweet 16 game, he's like, hey, sorry, can't do it. Give me the branded leg wraps. I don't know that I can say Kansas is a legit national championship contender. So I'm fascinated to see how this unfolds, and how they deal with that dynamic the rest of the year. And look, even if it's not going to be Kansas, click here to find out why I do think the Big 12 will win a basketball national championship this year. That's for the folks watching the clipped video. Thank you to those of you who are here live. Feel free to ignore that. I want to talk about the other half of Kansas BYU, which of course would be the BYU Cougars, and whether or not BYU is in major trouble after losing 2 games last week in which they fell behind by 21 and 19. Okay, I will get to that in just a moment. But thank you to those of you who have submitted super chats. You can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to contribute there, it is totally free to just like the video and subscribe to the channel, which would mean a ton to me. It helps me out a lot. We're getting very close to 30,000 subs. Thank you to everybody who's here. Genuinely. Please help me do that. And subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. Pacific Northwest Ute. You could say that BYU Kansas was off 2 chains. Well done. Pacific Northwest Ute. I love what you bring to the show. Thank you for bringing it every day. That was good. Yes. Not just 1 chain, not off the chain, off 2 chains. True. I guess what I should say there, Pacific Northwest, is true. To quote the great 2 Chainz. Key for 3 at PG. Key for 3 at PG says Kansas was daring to blow BYU out, but the Cougars Dybantsa back or Saundered back in. Okay, that's pretty good. Man, are you trying to one up Pacific Northwest Ute? Pacific Northwest Ute, I hope you are paying attention to this, because someone's trying to steal your bit here. They're trying to one up you with this thing. I'm here for the competition. It brings out the best in all of us. So I feel like I will just get better puns if you guys go at it. So I appreciate you, Key for 3 at PG. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Okay. All right. So BYU's lost back-to-back games. They trailed by 19 and 21 in each of those 2 games. Are any Big 12 title hopes dead? Is this team in trouble? Do they have a deep tournament run in them? Let's try to answer those questions in this video, okay? BYU at Kansas felt so much, if you're a BYU fan, it had to just feel identical to watching the Arizona game on Monday night, right? First half, the offense is stagnant. You're just not in a rhythm. You fall behind by, it was 19 against Arizona, and it was 21 against Kansas after being down 20 at halftime. And even in the Arizona game, you're still down by 11 with 1:06 left. But then you make the furious comeback. Somehow you're a blocked Rob Wright layup away from probably winning the game. And against Kansas, down 21, but you whittle it down to 4 with 1:27 left. And if not for a wild off-balance Melvin Council shot, would have been getting the ball back down only 4, with over a minute left in the game. It felt like 2 versions of the exact same game, maybe slightly different flavors, but, same soda that you're drinking. And for large stretches, when things were not going well, you get this feeling watching that BYU team that played the first half of the Kansas game, for instance, and you're like, all right, that's probably still a tournament team, but are they much more than that? I don't know. Well, then they show you the grit and toughness that they have, which, of course, is spearheaded by Richie Saunders and just bringing them, pulling them back into that game when AJ Dybantsa is getting handled pretty well. He faced 2 really good coaches and 2 really good teams that defended the hell out of him with what Arizona and Kansas did in each of those games. Like, they had a great plan to keep Dybantsa from really getting going, like in the mid-range, and especially like attacking the basket. He was certainly not going to bully Arizona. And I mean, Kansas was preventing him from even getting shots off for a while there. Dybantsa last week was 12 of 36 from the floor. So 33% from the floor. Like that's not going to get it done, man. That's not going to get it done. Rob Wright was better against Kansas, but really struggled against Arizona. That was a huge part of that game, why they had their struggles. But credit where it's due. Richie Saunders, is the heartbeat of this team, and that shined through in Lawrence. You think of him as being this grit guy, hustle guy. When we talk about, can this team go deep in the NCAA tournament? What's the ceiling for BYU? I will tell you the floor is raised a lot because of what Richie Saunders is. Like, he's always going to be there as the heartbeat. He is the heartbeat. Thump, thump, thumping. He's going to keep you going. And he did. And he is better than just this gritty effort player, as evidenced by, I want to play you this clip from Norm Roberts, who is an assistant for Kansas, who had very, very high praise for Richie Saunders after the game. So I believe I'm gonna credit Church Ball here for pulling this from the Field of 68 podcast. Okay, so this did come from the Field of 68. In order to not get in some hot water here, I'm just going to read you the quote here. But he made a lot of money for himself today. I saw a lot of NBA scouts come out of this saying this guy is going to move up quickly. So that's Norm Roberts, Kansas assistant coach, saying that about Richie Saunders after that game. Remember, you had multiple NBA GMs there at that game watching Dybantsa and Peterson, but Saunders goes out there, drops 33 and 10, 6 of 14 from three, showed off the quick release, the high arcing jump shot. Quote, he made himself a lot of money today. This guy is going to move up quickly. That's from a Kansas assistant. So shout out to Richie Saunders. But after the first half struggles, after 3 conference losses now, like, are the Cougars still in trouble? Are there chinks in the armor really showing? Can they make a deep tournament run? I'm going to answer that here in just a moment. Please do subscribe to the video, though. Pushing toward 30K subs. It really helps me if you do subscribe. It's totally free. If the goal is a Big 12 title, I mean, yes, I do think BYU is in some trouble. I do not think that BYU is going to win a Big 12 championship in all likelihood right now. They've already got the 3 losses, and they still have games with Houston, Arizona, Iowa State, Texas Tech left. Seems to me like you're probably looking at a 5 or 6 loss Big 12 season, 13 and 5, something like that. And maybe they have UCF left also. So maybe I should throw UCF in there, because shout out to the Knights, who have a roster that costs less than JT Toppin cost Texas Tech alone in NIL dollars. They beat Tech. They're 6-3 in the Big 12. That's a pretty good team. They do have to go to Provo, which will be difficult, but that is on the schedule. The other evidence I would submit is just we haven't seen BYU do this consistently or much at all against ranked teams this year. They're 1-4 against ranked teams. The one win was against Wisconsin in the non-con. So part of that is the Big 12 doesn't have like just your 20 through 25 ranked teams that you could pick up a win against. It's the Big 12 is kind of like the Big 10 in football right now, where you got like 5 or 6 just great teams at the top, and then there's a pretty big drop off there. But I would submit all that as evidence that BYU is probably not going to win the conference this year. But does that mean BYU is like really in trouble in terms of having a very good season? No. Can this team still be a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament? Yes, absolutely. As of 2 days ago, they were a 4 seed in bracketology. They could definitely still be a 3 or a 4 seed when it's all said and done. Does that mean this team can make a Final Four run? Yes, depending on the draw, depending on what kind of AJ Dybantsa you're getting in the tournament. I mean, he's a guy that could definitely go off. Richie Saunders, we now know. I mean, he's a guy that can get you 30. I think Rob Wright can get you 30. Like, there's enough there. You could ride the hot hand and certainly make a Final Four run. So a lot's still on the table. A lot is still on the table for BYU. It's just that winning a Big 12 title is going to take a lot of consistency here. At least a regular season title. I say it like that. Maybe a Big 12 tournament title. That could still be in play depending on how things break. But still capable of having a really, really nice season. If you wanted to push back and say, hey, John, maybe they still could really compete for that Big 12 regular season title, you would say, well, Tech, Houston, and Iowa State all have to come to the Marriott Center. So maybe you can pick them off at home. But we did see, Arizona, and you'd say maybe Arizona's just on a different level. They can beat the rest of those teams, and Arizona will get tripped up somewhere. I mean, perhaps. I think the problem is going to be Arizona, man. They just look They look so damn good right now. But I think what we learned about BYU this week is that they're not a 1 or a 2 seed that can win the Big 12. They're a 3 or a 4 seed that still is capable of making a Final Four run in the NCAA tournament. Certainly a second weekend run and possibly a Final Four run in the NCAA tournament. And man, that is still more than okay. That's awesome. That can be great. Just because you don't look like you're going to win the Big 12. I mean, yeah, okay. The best league out there with like 5 or 6 Final Four contenders. All right. BYU will be fine. They will be just fine. And hey, I still think BYU is set up to run the league in football and basketball along with Texas Tech for the foreseeable future. Click here to find out why. That's for the folks watching the clip version. Thank you to those of you who are watching live. Just ignore that. I've got one more story for you. We'll transition a bit to football for that. Just a bit. Though maybe it's not totally fair to say this because one of these, well, I'll get there in just a moment. Couple of reminders. Please subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com to do that. Again, that's ofbnews.com. Like the video. Over half the people that watch this channel do not subscribe, so make sure you subscribe. It helps me. It's totally free. We'll make sure you get more of this content even more often. So thank you, those of you that are helping me push toward 30K there. And let's see, what am I missing? If you want my national college football takes, make sure you subscribe to the OFB College Football channel, which you can find the link to in the description of this video. Okay, so the College Sports Commission is firing warning shots directly at the SEC. And so is the NCAA. The NCAA coming after one specific SEC college football playoff participant. And you know what? Texas Tech might actually be in the crosshairs here too. Will the NCAA and the College Sports Commission actually make an example out of two of the most high-profile SEC programs and the most, right now, high-profile Big 12 program? I'll answer that here in this video. Okay, the big breaking news of the weekend/week is that the College Sports Commission, which oversees NIL deals, we have confirmation now that they have opened an investigation into a big-name school from the SEC for the first time. Now, if you'll recall, the College Sports Commission, if you're saying, John, what is that? I can't keep all this straight. I don't blame you. The College Sports Commission was created to oversee NIL deals. So that's money that's not being distributed from the revenue sharing pot. So it's not coming out of the $20.5 or so million that is distributed for revenue sharing money. It's coming from NIL deals that go above that. And it is supposed to be anything above $600 goes through the College Sports Commission via NIL Go, and they will make sure that it's fair market value. That's the idea. So if you're doing deals that are not fair market value, College Sports Commission is supposed to be able to force you to tweak that, or the player would be deemed ineligible. So it draws some massive headlines when LSU is the school that through Open Records Request Acts, it was confirmed is being investigated by the College Sports Commission here. Now, there are a lot of questions about the legality of this. Can this actually hold up in court that the NCAA would be able to actually limit the amount that a player, student athlete could make just because of the rev share guidelines that they have set up? And many think that it would not hold up in court and that it's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. This is why not every school has signed off on the document that would be signing away your right to sue, which is something that the NCAA was trying to get through. All these schools, the Power Four conferences, were trying to get through. Texas Tech played a key role in stopping that and not signing it. And so not everybody has. Because they see, hey, the second they try and come down on us, we're going to sue them. That's basically what this feels like. So it's okay, LSU's on the chopping block. That seems like a school that would be very litigious here. Are we going to get some fireworks? And Lane Kiffin had a very busy offseason, if you were paying attention. Once he got to LSU, some high-profile players making a lot of money. Sam Levitt, the reports were that was going to be a $5 million plus deal. Jordan Seaton, Colorado offensive tackle, there was supposedly a $2 million asking price there. We got reporting that literally showed we got to see a $3.5 million contract offer to Brendan Sorsby from LSU. Obviously, he chose to go to Texas Tech instead. And then LSU is also the school that lured Damon Williams into the portal after he already had a $4 million deal from Washington. he wound up going back there. But you can do all the math here and say, like, LSU's throwing out some big money. Can you really say that in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, like fair market value for some of these guys is going to be a 7-figure number for whatever they would be doing to promote themselves? Everybody starts speculating about that. There's just one major catch, though. It's not for football. It's not for football. From The Athletic, they said details of the investigation were not included and are not publicly known, but a person briefed on the matter said it was not related to football. So, okay. Big to do about nothing there. For now, I would still raise the question, if LSU is getting investigated here for a different sport, that's already opening that door. Certainly football could be next. We'll see. Well, it's a different story for Ole Miss. There are legit allegations here for Ole Miss, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But I want to tack this on from Ross Dellinger. This is where Texas Tech comes in, okay? And this is a little bit of speculation, but I do think this is worth bringing up. So we'll read Ross Dellinger's tweet here, who says several college programs, at least one in the Big Ten and one in the Big 12, in addition to LSU, have received letters of inquiry from the CSC over the last few weeks of our athletes not reporting NIL deals. Some have already been resolved through communications with CSC officials. So Ross is saying, hey, it's not just LSU, Big 10 school and a Big 12 school are also among schools that have already received these notice of allegations. Letters of inquiry. When you say one Big 12 school, I am making an assumption there that would be Texas Tech. I think that would be most people's assumption, because Tech, we're not even just talking about football here, but Najari Kanade, like the softball player, Tech is throwing around big money in a bunch of different sports. Okay, so people assume that would be Texas Tech. We'll see. I wouldn't be overly concerned about this yet, but I do want to later in the video answer the question, like, could this be a situation where some school is going to be made an example out of? At least for now, at least for the time being. We'll see. Because we got to talk about Ole Miss, okay? Pete Golding, Ole Miss head coach, is under big-time fire. And this is where, if you're an SEC hater, somebody in the Big 12 wanting the SEC to be the one that gets made an example of, this is where you need to be paying attention. Please do subscribe to the channel, pushing toward 30K subs. Would appreciate it if you did that. Dabo Swinney was the first one to come after Ole Miss head coach Pete Golding, and he came hard. Now there are even other allegations of tampering. Both of these are tampering allegations for Pete Golding at Ole Miss. And it's our old friend John Canzano who has the dirty details about Fresno State and some tampering allegations with Ole Miss. The Clemson stuff was crazy. For those of you that missed this, Dabo Swinney had like a 6-minute rant at a press conference about the saga of one player, Luke Farrelly, who was a linebacker from Cal, who Clemson and Ole Miss were the two that he visited. He chooses Clemson. He enrolls at Clemson. He's on campus at Clemson. He takes classes at Clemson. He signs a contract with Clemson. He rents an apartment at Clemson. He buys a car at Clemson. He starts off-season workouts at Clemson. And you can see where this is going. He's now at Ole Miss. Okay, let's listen to Dabo Swinney to tell you what happens.
And to Ben Boulware, that Pete texted him on Wednesday morning, the head coach at Ole Miss, when he was in his 8 a.m. class. And he said, the text message said, I know you're signed. What's the buyout? And he also, Luke said that Coach Golding also texted him a picture of a $1 million contract. Luke also mentioned to Jordan and to Ben that Coach Golding had Trinidad Chambliss call him from his phone, and that Coach Golding was there continuing to talk on his phone to push him to re-enter the transfer portal. He also said that Jackson Dart had reached out and called him. But Luke again assured Jordan that he had no intention of leaving.
Yeah, well, he left. And so that's pretty damning evidence. Clemson said they turned everything over to the NCAA. Dabo's trying to make an example here. And I think there are a lot of people in college athletics and coaching that would like to see somebody made an example of, as everybody is tampering with everybody. Well, just days after that, here comes Fresno State. John Canzano, West Coast college football reporter, said the NCAA contacted Fresno State about rumors that Ole Miss had improper contact with their leading receiver, Josiah Freeman. And Canzano wrote, quote, Fresno State has the receipts. Apparently, Matt Entz, Fresno State head coach, and athletic director Garrett Classy declined comment, but they supposedly, according to Canzano, provided NCAA investigators with screenshots of communications with Ole Miss. So Ole Miss did not get this guy, but they are throwing out tampering allegations there and trying to come after him. So now you've got two major, damning tampering allegations coming from, in one spot, a really high-profile head coach and two FBS schools. Is the NCAA going to make an example out of this? Will they make an example out of LSU in whatever sport it is with the CSC? I'm certainly skeptical. I think Dabo Swinney has a point. I think Fresno State has a point. This all seems like blatant tampering. I'm sure it's happening with a bunch of different schools in a bunch of different places, but Pete Golding has been caught red-handed here, and it's getting a bit ridiculous. Utah fans, you guys can relate to this, right? Salase Moa took classes at Utah before then having an official announcement that he would be flipping to Michigan and heading to Michigan, right? Like it's a bit out of control now. It's getting a bit crazy, and there doesn't seem to be any real recourse for it at the moment. You just sort of have to deal with it and try to do it to the next guy when somebody does it to you. So, like, it takes some courage to come out there with these allegations, because now, if you're Dabo, you better not tamper with anybody or you'll be totally under fire. I have learned at this point to not trust that the NCAA or any kind of governing body in college sports has any real power. I mean, who trusts that any of these institutions right now have any real teeth to them? I just don't know. I don't know how you could trust that. So while I would like for there to be some reform here and things to get less crazy and all of this to die down, I don't think you're going to see that. And there's a part of me that even Fresno State obviously didn't make a big show of it like Dabo did. There's a part of me that thinks for a guy like Dabo, it's like, hey, man, the guys that are succeeding in this era right now are the ones that are just putting their head down and going to work and not really worrying about this and throwing it out there. So as far as Dabo goes, I'm a bit inclined to think this is still a bad sign for Clemson if he's getting worked up. But like, you don't see Curt Cignetti complaining about this, and surely Indiana players have been tampered with, right? You just got to put your head down and get to work. College Sports Commission, that one to me is a bit more interesting than the NCAA with tampering, just because that's new. That's new. We're still waiting for how that's going to go down. But even if they did really try to throw some teeth behind this, if they were to ever try and make a player ineligible, I mean, that would be a lawsuit so fast. And then, again, back to the NCAA having no teeth, they've been losing every single lawsuit that happens. So in the end, do I expect this to be some massive crushing blow for big-time SEC schools? No, and even if it is temporarily, I would expect that they would win most likely in court, at least the LSU half of this. But let me know what you think in the comments. Should Ole Miss be punished? Do you respect Dabo for doing this? I'm very curious. If you're a Texas Tech fan, do you have any worry about the College Sports Commission? I can guess what your answer probably would be, but let me know. Let me know what you think there. Let's see. Do we have any super chats to get to? I do. We've got a couple super chats to get to before I end the show here. Appreciate that. Reese, thank you for being here, Reese. Reese says, hey, John, from your last live about recruiting stars going down in the Big 12, this doesn't seem to be happening at Tech. Since 2024, Tech has signed 4 5-stars with 2 more on the way in 27. Wreck 'em. Well, I do think this even fits into part of what my explanation was for it, because I don't think, sometimes I think we as fans want to get into our heads and be like, oh, man, this is some really, really coordinated effort. And people have a group chat where they're like, hey, this recruit, a Big 12 guy, like, let's make sure and bump him down a star. I don't think it's anything like that. I just think it's more a perception issue that you're fighting, which is kind of perpetual for the Big 12. So it is like, okay, the next time they go update their rankings and they now know that this kid is committed to a Big 12 school instead of, say, a Michigan or whatever, it's like, well, okay, like, he's a Big 12 player. we're not going to give him the benefit of the doubt on bumping him up a star or keeping him at his star rating, or we'll give this other kid the bump because he is going to a Michigan, right? I think that sort of thing probably happens, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And Texas Tech has earned some cachet now to where people are like, oh, well, if he's going to Texas Tech, I mean, they are the most talented in the Big 12. They're a playoff team. Like, Texas Tech very quickly has earned quite a bit of cachet. So that could be some of what's happening there too. But it also probably is just, it's not happening with every single kid. So good for the Red Raiders, man. Good for Tech. These must be very solid, solidified, great players if they can come to a Big 12 school and not lose their star rating. So it's good stuff. But I would submit to you that I think Tech is doing enough, it's done enough PR work on its resume with the accomplishments on the field and the amount of talent that they clearly showed everybody they had last year that is helping. So thank you, Reese. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the support. Pacific Northwest Ute. At least Witt didn't call Moa in class. Hashtag allegedly. Yeah, I was going to say, do we know that, Pacific Northwest Ute? Do we know that he didn't call Moa in class? Because maybe he did. Maybe he did. It really is. I mean, just picture this world. First of all, I'm glad that the kid was actually in class, because I hear more and more about like all these players, they're just taking all online classes anyway these days so that they can focus more on football and doing what they needed. Like, so not even being in class, whereas that's a thing that makes me sad, because back when I was in school, okay, in the late 2000s, back when I was in school, I would go to class and like, oh, hey, there's Jacob Pullen. Wow, there's Bill Walker. I remember driving up to the dorms one time on like a Friday night, and I'm like, dude, there's Michael Beasley in a Tahoe. That's awesome. That was like a cool thing about being in college at the time. So the fact that that doesn't seem to happen on a regular basis anymore does suck. But think about this kid. I'm on a long tangent here. Think about this kid. You're just chilling in your 8 o'clock class. Like, oh man, I'm kind of tired. I made it here to class. I'm just signed to Clemson. You got all this stuff. And then it's literally Pete Golding's just like, hey man, here's a $1 million contract. Dabo, I think, slipped that part in there. Like, he's texting him a picture of a $1 million contract. You're sitting next to the kid that, just beer bonged 10 beers last night and stumbled into class at 8 a.m. and is like sitting there with $30 in his checking account, just enough to go get Chipotle later that day. And here you are sitting next to him, and it's Pete Golding, the newly hired head coach at Ole Miss, that's texting you a picture of a $1 million contract with your name on it. Wild world that we are living in today, my friends, but that is the world that we are living in today. And you know what? Good on the players. Go get yours. That's not me complaining about that part specifically. Anyway, thank you for setting me up for that tangent, Pacific Northwest U. Seems like a fitting way to end the show. Mr. Steve, thank you for your kind words. Mr. Steve, I will just say some of this is just dependent on the audience. It's dependent on what you guys want. There hadn't been a lot of response toward basketball yet, but it seems like we're now getting to that point. We're out of transfer portal. We're out of coaching carousel. Dust had settled a bit on that, and people seem to be really into basketball. I try to judge not just off the videos, but what I'm seeing on Twitter, what people are responding to, and it felt very appropriate to dive into hoops. So, Mr. Steve, I try to give you guys what you want, all right? Customer is always right. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your support of the channel. Once again, guys, like the video, subscribe. We're getting close to 30K subs. I really appreciate all of you who are helping push me there. But over half of you who watch the channel do not subscribe. So please click that button. It would help me a lot. It's totally free. John-Curse-4 on Venmo if you want to contribute to the channel that way. I will kick off the next show with your donation if you do that. And sign up for the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. You can also check out my OFB College Football channel, OFB College Football, if you want national college football content from me. So lots of ways to get in touch. Thank you for all the support, truly, for all of you guys out there. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Take care, and I will talk to you all soon.